Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program.
Welcome everyone to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm your host, Matthew Holman. I'm really excited to be joined today by my good friend, Lydia Farmer from Dime Beauty. Hi, Lydia.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. The topic for today's discussion is called Beauty and the Beast, the good and bad of subscriptions. And while many of you may have thought that the title of that is just coming from the fact that we have a beast interviewing a beauty here, we are actually going to be talking about some of the both positives and negatives of subscriptions. So Lydia, I would love first for you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and Dime.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lydia. I work at Dime Beauty. I have been there for almost 2 years. I am the subscriptions and loyalty lead. Before that, I was the retention coordinator. So email, SMS, subscriptions, loyalty, that's my jam. So I'm
Absolutely.
happy to be here.
And Dime Beauty is a skincare brand.
Yeah, skincare. Yeah. We're very big on subscriptions, big focus in our brand. So
Absolutely. Okay. So when we're thinking about both the good and bad in subscriptions, what comes to mind for you that's both great about subscriptions? Let's start there. What do you think is great about subscriptions for you or for brands in general?
Totally. I feel like the predicted revenue obviously is big, as well as like inventory. A lot of brands market like never run out, always in stock, that type of thing. And then also on top of that, obviously LTV and just retention in general is so much nicer when you have a subscription model. So.
But what makes subscriptions hard? What's the bad, the ugly for you guys?
I think a lot of times it can be like communication with the customer. Sometimes subscriptions can get a bad rep of like, oh, I didn't know I was subscribed, or things like that, especially as subscriptions have become more popular. I also feel like it can get hard when you're trying to navigate subscription offers with one-time purchase offers, because you see brands that market really heavily with discounts.
Right.
And during promotional periods, you want to match the discounts so you stay competitive in the market, but also your subscribers are your most loyal, so you want them to have the best offer, but it's not always sustainable to give them what you would give as a one-time purchase during Black Friday.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the things I really want to spend some time talking about is like, obviously everybody here thinks subscriptions are nice or great for your brand, but it's difficult to manage what the brand wants, right? Yeah. Profitability and a lot of predictable revenue with what the customer wants, which might be like, I only want to buy your product every 6 months instead of every month kind of thing. So yeah. What is an example? I mean, you brought up some of like the discounting stuff, so we can start there. Like when you guys are running a special or promotion, what's something that's happening? You're getting a lot of people that are going to cancel to try to get the special offer or the sale that's happening?
I feel like we just have to be cognitive of the fact that the sale could be better than what they might have subscribed at. So something we've done is incorporating it in cancellation flows. So if they do go and they're like, oh, I do want the 30% off, I'm going to cancel my order, we put it in the cancellation flow of like, oh, do you want the sale discount? And then they get the discount on their next order, because it was only a one-time purchase offer.
Honestly, I've never actually heard of another brand doing that actively, because I feel like from a management standpoint that may be a little tricky. But if you're running big sales, it makes sense.
It's just activating and deactivating cancellation flows. So.
And are you doing any further segmenting for people on that? Like, are you looking at how you're offering a cancellation flow for somebody that just came into the program versus somebody that's been around longer? Or how aggressive are you getting in that strategy, that part of strategy?
We just barely started incorporating it. I feel like this year has changed a little bit in terms of like discounting structure and things for a lot of brands. I see a lot of brands that are like, oh, our sale is extended a day, when normally it wouldn't have been extended. So we're definitely, the cancellation flow is a new thing we're doing, and we'll definitely build it out more. Something we want to focus on is like products people are subscribed to, because we have like our top SKUs, and so focusing on keeping them subscribed and those types.
I mean, how do you, like, maybe taking a quick little segue there, because Dime has a ton of products, right? You obviously have some that sell better than others, but you do have so many on subscription. How do you focus on subscriber experience when somebody who maybe doesn't realize that they're subscribed to your least popular product wants that same high touch personalization experience? as opposed to somebody who's buying a hero product from you.
For sure. I think most times you usually start big and then you go small. So
Right.
it starts with like a cancellation flow for everybody, and then as you like narrow it down, you're able to make branches and things like that to really target specific products. Also, sometimes it's like 80% of your subscribers are subscribed to these 5 things, so focus on them first before you really dive into the 20%.
No, that's great. Okay, so one of the other things that's really difficult about subscriptions, right, is we want everybody, I mean, everybody here is probably offering a monthly subscription, but maybe you'd rather wish the people are subscribing every 2 weeks, right, because they'd be spending twice as much with you.
Totally.
How do you think about, but that's also from a customer standpoint kind of tricky because sometimes you're overly aggressive and how they should be getting it, and they end up with 6 of them, right, sitting on their nightstand.
Totally.
How do you manage that, both positive for you to push for a higher frequency versus usage for somebody, and if there's a specific example from what you guys are doing?
Yeah. I think it's nice because skincare is definitely like use once a day or twice a day or whatever, but a lot of times like Dime customers specifically are maybe new to skincare, they haven't been using, so it's interesting to get them to like use it more routinely, and that comes in education really. So just using emails and things like that to.
So you're onboarding people to the product, making sure they're using it. What
Yeah.
happens for somebody when they're maybe still not using it as aggressively? Like, you know, I'm using a smaller amount because of I mean, technically I use a lot of skincare because of surface area, but I mean, for somebody maybe has a smaller head or a smaller face, they're using
Yeah.
a product a different size. Because I've always found that a little bit funny, right? Like how many squeezes I get out of the bottle versus you, shampoo, other things like that, right?
Yeah.
How are you helping manage people that are running into a different usage amount than, say, somebody else in the program?
Totally. I think that has to do a lot with like onboarding. I've seen brands do it where they like explain the usage very clearly in the buy box, and that's something I want to incorporate more, is just saying like, do you do skincare twice a day or just once a day or once every other day, or you know what I mean?
Right, so it's being able to change the frequency option based on what somebody's
being
selecting.
able to change the frequency option, but also know, hey, this bottle will last you 30 days if you use it night and morning. Like,
Right.
I think when I started with Dime, I was not much of a skincare person, maybe once a day, and it was like cleanser and moisturizer, that was it. But then I'm like realizing I'm going through my bottles so much faster because I'm using them night and morning and whatever. So it really just evolving with the consumer and their habits.
And making sure, I'm assuming like the cancellation portal and experience is something where you're trying to enable that as well?
Exactly. Like if they say, I use it but I have too much product right now, obviously the cancellation like win backs are
Offering them to adjust their schedule or something like that.
100%, yeah.
Okay, Lydia, as we're thinking more through anything, is there anything else that comes to mind that you feel like on the subscription side that you guys are doing a really great job of how you're either educating or retaining customers that you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Something we found super helpful is incorporating loyalty with subscriptions. We're really trying to mesh the two because we're not on the same platform for both.
Right.
But using it in like the billing reminder text messages they get, we recently updated the billing reminder to include like, hey, you have 100 points, that's enough for $5 off your next order. Do you want to add it? And that we saw like exponential ROI on that. I think sometimes billing reminders can just say like, hey, you're gonna get charged, do you want to skip? And it's like, sure, of course I want to skip, you know what I mean? But so we tried to like really message that, hey, use your points or something like that that's not like prompting them to skip or delay or pause or.
I think that's another one of the bad things about subscriptions is
Yeah.
brands hate having to send a billing reminder.
Yeah, so
right?
they don't, and then people are like reaching out to see us and they're like,
Right.
what the heck?
And then, and then as a buyer, you hate when you don't get it,
Yeah.
right? So that's like a misalignment. So you're right, like thinking of loyalty, because you guys are using like Recharge for the subscription piece and Yotpo for the loyalty piece, right? So you're getting people to redeem their points. Is that actually helping increase like what they're spending on with them, or do you see it straight as a retention play?
It's mostly a retention play. Ideally, like as we iterate, hopefully it would be more of like add this product to get $10 off trying a new product to really like have product adoption be
Okay.
like,
So you're seeing like loyalty point usage is helping people stick with their subscription more because they're redeeming points instead of canceling. I really
For sure,
like it. I really
yeah.
like it. Okay, awesome. I guess anything negative or anything on the beast side of subscriptions you want to talk about that you don't like, either as a user or as a brand that you're kind of fighting against?
Yeah, I feel like as I've been obviously there's so many different subscription models, and I think like over Memorial Day I got messages for a water bottle filter that I'm subscribed to, right? And it's like 20% off. And the water bottle filter I change every 3 months. Every time it arrives, I know, okay, I need to change this. This is a great reminder. So I never have too much product because it reminds me to change it. But that one, I'm just like laid back. Oh, 20% off. I don't know what my discount is on that, but it only ships every 3 months and I don't care that much. So I didn't even bother to look. But then there's other subscriptions that go monthly and are a higher charge that you're going to be more like, oh, do I want this month, or do I have too much, or I'm supposed to be using it every day? Am I using it every day? So
that's one of the hard parts. I think every brand here would love their subscription offering to feel like it just sits in the back of your mind and you don't think about it, right?
It's just convenient.
Right.
Yeah, because that's really the hope with a subscription, is that it's convenient for somebody.
Right.
But when they have 10 bottles in their cabinet, they're going to pause.
Right,
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Lydia, thank you so much. We're going to turn some time over for questions for anybody. Yeah, let's go right here. So biggest levers in retention for your business?
For sure. I think combining loyalty definitely has been a big push for ours, even if like one-time purchase, getting them to come back using loyalty points to help them. Also subscriptions, it's like an automatic retention lever because they subscribe, and of course you're going to have people who unsubscribe after the first purchase. I mean, I've been a consumer that does that, but at the end of the day you're going to keep more than you would have if it was just a one-time purchase, and then hope that your emails got them to come back or something like that.
Okay. So reducing churn.
Yeah. I think that kind of goes into the loyalty with subscriptions part, is using loyalty. Also, cancellation flows are really big.
And you mentioned onboarding education stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Onboarding education, definitely like educating them before they even purchase of, hey, how often do you use or will you use this product? So then they actually subscribe at the right cadence, I think is really important. I was talking to somebody who worked at Harry's, and they did like a infographic thing that was like pick which one describes you, and it was like someone really hairy, someone not so hairy, and that helped determine like, okay, do you need to be subscribed every 30 days or longer than that, just depending on how long it's going to last.
Yeah, so often like the usage piece is one of the biggest indicators of churn or not.
Because that's the biggest churn reason, is I have too much. If they don't like your product, then that's something to iterate on your product, but most of the time it's that they have too much.
All right. So asking about obstacles between educating people about retention versus loyalty and how those two pieces work.
Yeah, that's definitely a big focus and been very like forefront for me. There's a lot of loyalty and subscription softwares. They don't always go together super well. I've seen brands have in the subscription portal, like you have this amount of points in the portal, so you can just add it right there, which I think is really cool. Also, like refer a friend in the portal, I think, because at the end of the day, they're subscribers, so they love your product, obviously. So.
But I've been getting that question a lot from a lot of brands where it's like, we have people that have points that don't even know that they have points, and how we help try to educate them. And yes, embedding the widgets so they see that when they go in. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's putting the points in the email like you are. Yeah. I think that's email, another great SMS. Way to do that.
I think just incorporating it in your messaging so then they know.
Right. SMS is a great way to do that. Yes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So asking about people that come through refer a friend, do you feel like they're stickier subscribers?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they are. For Dime, word of mouth is really big for us, and so it's, I don't know, women in general love to like share what they're doing, and especially skincare and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely a stickier channel.
I mean, I share what I'm using for like my razors and stuff like that all the time, but yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, question about what are you doing or using for involuntary churn and payment recovery?
Totally. We are currently on Recharge, and they have like, if the card didn't go through. Obviously they tried to charge it a certain amount of time, but also we messaged to the consumer that their card, they need to
Are you
update.
using their add-on feature for their retain package for their processing, Dunning recovery? Okay. Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, so using their
helps.
Recharge's advanced Dunning features and messaging stuff, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of tools out in the space for that.
There
that
are,
doing
a
that.
lot of additional ones, yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
So in beauty, I feel like influencers are a huge way to find new customers. Do you find that you are crossing your influencer strategy and your subscription strategy at all?
So questions about influencer strategy being so impactful in acquiring customers, and is that crossing, or is it, say, muddying the waters when it comes to subscriptions, or do they work? Okay. Yeah, are you using influencers in driving subscriber acquisition in the program?
Yeah, I think we do a little bit. I definitely think it's a huge opportunity. I've seen a lot of brands. I think of AG1, for instance. Obviously, that's only subscriptions, but every influencer that I see talk about it, which is so many because that's a big part of their strategy, is always oh, I've been taking this for 3 months. I love it so much. And I think in general with subscriptions, it's just so important to talk about repeated use and why that matters, because a lot of times I feel like customers get a product and they try it for a little bit and they're like, yeah, it was nice, but I don't need to pay $70 more for it again. But if you set the expectation of, hey, buy it for 3 months and then really decide. So
I think a really great tactic you can do to look at that too is, since you're often tracking influencers by discount code, is actually just look at your customer LTV and group them by discount code to see if you have subscriber adoption differences and LTV differences. What we found when we've done this audit for some brands is you'll have a couple of really, really clear winners. So for whatever reason, their content or their following just naturally does better on subscriptions. Those are the influencers you want to make sure you're including in subscription forward marketing messages and campaigns. You can't get too fancy with it because you don't want to build out custom landing pages for everybody, but you can include them hey, we're make sure that they're getting those marketing materials for those campaigns. Anybody else? Yes. Yeah, so asking what are the biggest impactful parts of the cancellation flow?
I feel like it can vary brand to brand depending on what you sell, how many SKUs you have. Like Matt mentioned, Dime has a lot of SKUs, and so we have sectioned it out based on the top SKUs and our top subscription SKUs specifically, and navigating it around that and communicating by product. I also think something else I've seen brands do is LTV. Obviously, you don't want to offer somebody who just purchased, they go to unsubscribe right away, and you're like, oh, here's an even bigger discount. And they're like, okay, sick. You know what I mean? So there's definitely touch and go with cancellation flows. And so I think looking at LTV, looking at products, things like that. And then also just understanding what you would want as a consumer if you were in their shoes. Also, ChatGPT will give you lots of good ideas.
Yeah.
Transparently. Use AI, yeah. We don't use that currently. We definitely have a big CS team that manages a lot of customers reaching out, a lot of education. We have a Facebook group, I think, that really helps. I'll get on there and I'll see people be like, oh, I want to purchase a new product, what should I get? And then there's 20 comments of current Dime users that are buy this. So I think community can really help also.
Yeah, I would add one thing we're seeing be really effective is a founder video on the splash screen. So when somebody goes to hit cancel, you get a screen that comes up and the founder's explaining the mission behind the brand, and then also a little bit of hey, if you have too much product, it's really easy to adjust your schedule. We have, if it's too expensive, you can get some savings there. But I think that kind of personal touch makes people feel and especially if you have a really common, Dime has so many products, so it's harder to segment this, but others have a top concern is people don't know to use the razor this way versus this way. Right, the founder can explain, hey, a lot of people have product issues because they, you don't know you have to go that direction. I would say anytime you can get really targeted on answers, so testing through those cancellation reasons periodically, hey, if we're getting too much product can often be, I never started using the product versus I'm on the
using it
wrong,
right.
yeah, I'm not using
Yeah.
it right or using the right amount.
Yeah.
So thinking through more methodically about how you're testing and changing those reasons.
Yeah, I would also add, this is a little off topic than your question, but subscribers are your best customers. So it can be really insightful to see like, oh, why have they been subscribed for a whole year, and kind of
So proactively surveying, is that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay.
and then going into acquisition with that like knowledge of like, oh, our best customers are X, Y, and Z. Let's target them in our
Right.
marketing and also in our cancellation flows, like understanding the people who are churning and the people who aren't. So
Yeah, and then I would say the final thing too is like discounting. Like I hate aggressive discounting up front because that cheapens like the value add, right? But on the cancellation flow, it's difficult other than very specific use cases like, hey, I couldn't get the bottle to open. All right, here's an instructional video to open the bottle. Like discounting is the best method to try to keep somebody, but you can always test when you're offering them. Like you mentioned, new subscribers versus people that have been around longer, but also paying attention to how many orders. Actually, this is Payush, I don't know if you heard, a new feature Loopad has, I just saw this with one of our clients, was it showed how many orders, average orders somebody was staying on after they were saved in the reporting, which was an amazing metric to see like how effective the discounting was. And we saw a test with this client they were doing 50% off on one order or 25% off for two orders, right? The 50% off order had a higher average number of cycles after the save than
Oh,
the
really?
25% off,
that's
right?
interesting.
So you're able to kind of get that out of the way and get them to keep buying more from you. Anyway, so
Yeah, and I would recommend on your cancellation flows, like A/B testing them. We did tests of like higher discount versus lower discount, and a lot of times a lower discount does just as good. So
And and not doing I keep seeing the month over month discount, like say getting this off for this many of orders isn't as impactful because people aren't thinking like, I don't
that's
care about
gonna
the
save
discount
me.
I need on the next order. I'm thinking about this order right now.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, people as frictionless as possible. So if you're not having to do the math of like, oh, well, technically I'm getting 50%
Right.
off two orders. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
make
absolutely.
it easy.
Another question, yes.
Yeah.
So, question about win backs. What's the win back strategy? Are you segmenting that based on reason, and when maybe you're thinking about outreach?
For sure. I think, well, in general, you can look at why they canceled. So if they had too much product, then you're going to give a longer window before you reach out to them because you're hoping that they're using the product. Or maybe you reach out sooner and suggest how to use the product better, how often they should be using it, and then reach out again to do the win back. So it can be very like tailored by reason. So
Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
discounting. Yeah, we haven't done a ton of testing, but I've seen brands do that, and I think it would be really insightful to see.
We've done some tests on it with the like get a gift to stay,
Yeah.
and it can be, but it's not always like it's not
Depends
so.
on the gift, probably.
It does depend on the gift, and it's not always as clear of a winner as you'd like it to be. And it does come down to like, is the discount just easier, right, from an operational standpoint? But
Yeah.
it's definitely something worth getting. I think the other thing would be if you have a lot of different flavors or versions, for example, of your product, of offering people the swap or try something different.
Yeah, depending on the reason,
yeah.
if they don't. Yeah.
Right.
I also feel like something I've seen, for instance, Amazon, if you go to cancel, it's saying like, oh, you're losing this much value. I think calling out the value they're missing by unsubscribing could be really.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Great point. Yeah, I think depending on your platform, a lot of them have different options for like even in individual cancellation reasons. Like on
Yeah.
Recharge, you can do that splash screen up front. You can also once somebody selects too much product, you can have additional content there to educate people and stuff. So making sure, I would say that's one of the biggest things we see is depending on the platform you're using, make sure you're leveraging all of the features that platform has. Ask your CSM at that subscription app, like, what are features we're not using? Because a lot of brands just aren't leveraging
Yeah.
a lot of the tools that are available on the cancellation prevention side.
Totally.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Lydia, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah,
And
this is fun.
thank you so much for so many great questions. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Oh, I usually supposed to say stay tuned for another episode of Subscription Prescription.
That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.